John Scheele, and Ellenshaw. Hey, Bill, stand up for a second. If you've ever wondered who had the honor of having the first picture in Cinefx with someone sitting in a monitor, at a computer monitor, it was Bill Kroyer on this. So, why don't we start out real briefly and sort of place this film in context and tell us a little bit about your background and what you were doing before Tron and sort of what led up to Tron. Steven, you want to lead off?
Yeah, my background was primarily in animation. I went to film school, but I really got into animation more than live action. And I saw computer animation for the first time at MIT in Boston. And I knew that we had to create a character if we were going to survive as a studio. So I thought, well, we'll go with something in the computer realm, because that seems to be what's happening. And a very talented animator that worked at the studio named John Norton, he worked up an electronic warrior called Tron. And it's interesting because everything that came after that sort of grew out of an animation background. And it became more live action as it moved forward. But in a way, the whole industry has sort of moved in that direction over the years too. It really was animation that figured out how to composite an enormous amount of shots. And when we started on Tron, if you talked in numbers of 50 or 200 effect shots, people, ran for the door. And then I thought, well, we're going to do this. It's going to need 1,100 effect shots and 900 with composited human beings. And the only way you could do it really is to break it all down like an animated film, so it wouldn't bottleneck behind optical printers. Really, the big breakthrough wasn't just CG. The breakthrough, and this happened after Tron, years later, was digital compositing of film. And when we made Tron, that concept was almost more than you could ever hope for. So that was my background. And I really, I was inspired by the people who worked with computers. That's where the story came from. And it was their dedication to something that didn't exist yet that I thought really was, it was like artists, only they were technicians. And what really kept me going was trying to put all these big themes that were in my head together with the technology. And it wasn't just the effects, it really was that story stuff. And just like we put together all these elements to make the film, I never worked with computers, even when I was making Tron. I just worked with the people who had to work with the computers. And it was always about the people. It was fight for the users, and right from the beginning. And the last thing I'll say, and I'll shut up about this, was that I realized that people back in the day that were so scared of technology, I've thought about that over the years. Why were they so scared of it? And then, it's only recently I've come to the conclusion they were scared of it because it was in our hands, not in theirs. If they had had the technology, I think then it would have been fine. But when they looked at that group of filmmakers and said, these guys have all these tools, what's happening to the world? So it's interesting the way the future shows up, and it doesn't come from the people you think are going to deliver it, and it doesn't look like what they expected it to look like. And that's what throws people off. So.
Richard, why don't you go next?
Yeah, I'm Richard Taylor. I was co-effects director on the film with Harrison here. I got involved in Tron. I had been at Robert Abel and Associates, as an art director, designer there, and had created a process called Candy Apple Neon, which was a way of backlighting artwork, and we did a lot of ABC and on-air graphics and the 7-Up on Cola commercials back in the day. And I had worked on Star Trek. What's that?
The 70s.
The 70s, yeah. 70s rock. So I had moved on. I worked on Star Trek the feature, and then I had joined up with Triple I, Information International Incorporated, and became creative director there, and was heavily involved in the first evolutions of raster graphics. Raster graphics is when the computer imitates the effect of light hitting an object and bounces it to a theoretical camera and creates a dimensional object. And that was what we used in Tron to replace what would have been done with miniatures. And so I was there, and we had done a film called Looker, which we did the effects for. And then Steven Lisberger luckily came researching his film Tron, and we all eventually ended up together working on the film, and the rest is history.
Wow. It's pretty amazing that Tron was so long ago, and it still warms my heart to be up here with these people, because as Steven said, it is about the people. And as much as Tron gets noticed because it was all about computers, that was never the issue. That was never part of it. I was very fortunate that I'd been in the film business doing matte paintings basically up until Tron, and Tron was my first time as a co-visual effects supervisor. And in those days, there weren't that many people supervising visual effects, because visual effects, there just wasn't the kind of numbers of effects in films that there are. Every film today has effects in it, what we call effects. So my first gig as a visual effects supervisor was to work on a film that had 1,200 visual effects in it. And I had no idea. I don't think many of us did. Thankfully, Steven had this harebrained concept of it would be done with computers, and then it would be done with backlight compositing and all sorts of stuff, which I kind of knew about, but not much. So it was such a learning experience, and it was such a huge challenge just to figure out how to get through the day and into the next day and get this film out into the theaters in basically a year and a half. And we weren't reinventing the wheel, we were inventing a whole new thing that wasn't like old wheels. It was just a new genre, basically. And it in a sense, gives me chills now to know that I was fortunate enough, so long ago, to be part of it.
And it's not just the technology, that was involved in the, shooting of the backlight animation. It's also the data management. It's essentially the organization, and it's the coordination to make sure none of that stuff gets lost, because you'll see in a little bit exactly what went into doing most of this stuff.
We were really fast. I mean, we finished...
Yeah, a year and a half.
I locked up the picture after principal photography, 3 weeks after principal photography. This movie was finish, edit, done. Don't change it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That was 3 weeks after principal, and we basically did these 1,100 shots in 7 months with a system that had never been done. And on Tron Legacy just now, we had more than double the time, and we barely got it done.
Yeah. So, continuing the introductions, Bill, you were at Disney as an animator at the time, weren't you?
Yeah, I started at Disney in 1977 in the animation department, and it was the traditional Disney 2D animation department. I sometimes tell the story that when I came into that department, the only technology in my workspace that was not there during Snow White was the electric pencil sharpener. And I'm not kidding. The pegs, the scene stackers, the way we sent film down to camera, came back in 35mm loops, put them in moviolas. They did have electric pencil sharpeners. They still had the old hand crank pencil sharpeners screwed onto the desk. So it was amazing how in 40 years absolutely nothing had changed. The Snow White animator could have walked into my room and sat right down and gone to work. So a couple of years later, we were doing Fox and the Hound. It wasn't that exciting. Steve Lisberger comes to town from Boston, comes over to the studio, visits, comes into our room and pitches all of us about, I'm in town, I got this new studio, it's going to be really exciting. You guys should all, quit Disney and come work for me. And of all the guys, and they were so many stellar guys, in that room was Brad Bird, who directed Ratatouille, and John Scheele, who directed, Princess and the Frog, and Henry Selick, who directed Coraline, and Tim Burton was it, and the only person who quit Disney and went to work for Steve Lisberger was me.
But wait a minute, but Brad Bird came later.
When he got fired.
So Bill, have you ever had to pay for dinner?
Here's the cool thing though. It's like, so we go down to Venice and we're making Animal Olympics, which, by the way, I think this is this project that Steve directed. Yeah, it's this really great little film, and I think it's the last. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's the last animated feature film, hand inked, hand painted, completely done under one roof in the United States of America. The whole thing was done in our warehouse in Venice. We boarded it, animated it, in between it, hand inked it, painted it, shot it. So while we're doing this film with this great little crew of people, I used to have some of my friends from the animation business come down to do, on Friday nights after work.
Yeah.
We kind of have people, very famous animators, Ken O'Connor, the greatest layout guy in Disney history. So one Friday, I invited Walt Paraguay, and you'll know him. He's the guy who designed 101 Dalmatians. You're all familiar with that incredible look, with the Xerox line and the kind of wash color and everything. Just one of the great art directors of all time. We invited him to come down and talk to the crew. And usually when we'd have animators or painters or layout people, they'd bring stuff, they'd bring art, and then they'd show stuff. Walt Paraguay walks in with nothing. And we all get into the conference room, we sit down. And I'm wondering, what's he going to show us? And he gets up and he says, you guys, too bad you missed it. And so what are you talking about? He says, the golden age is over. Everything good has been done. You guys, you're doing junk here, you're never going to do anything good again. It's like it's over. And I'll never forget this. Steve goes into this thing.
I forgot it, but go ahead. Yes.
No, I'm sorry. Steve goes in this thing and he says to Walt Paraguay, he says, you don't know what you're talking about. We're going to put stuff on the screen that you can't even imagine. We're going to create imagery that you can't even dream of today. And I have to say, didn't he do it?